Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have the full review for this awesome new diver from Orient, Japan. Now, also one of the new things that we figured out during this time is that this actually does have a nickname that has been assigned from our friends over at Orient USA, which we're kind enough to pass over the press release because we do have a nice little relationship going. So this dive watch is actually officially going to be dubbed the new Orient Triton. So really cool name, and we'll go over their press release a little bit here in the video. Also, if you haven't already seen my video with my initial thoughts, kind of in the unboxing there, definitely check that out. It's been up for a little while now. Now I'm going to go more into kind of the full review here. So a little bit about the brand. Orient is, of course, a company out of Japan, and they are kind of Seiko and Citizen's lesser known cousin, in that, you know, when you think of Japanese watches, you think of Seiko, you think of Citizen, you think of Casio. You don't really think of Orient, and it's not through lack of quality or prestige or esteem. Orient watches are really well known in that area. They just aren't really sold too much outside of Japan. Of course, there are a couple of models that do make it out, but for the most part, just a lot of people don't know about these watches, and hopefully channels like this have been able to get some visibility, because I think you can just get such great deals and so much bang per buck when you're looking at an Orient watch. So in particular, this is a brand new model for 2018, and you know, just dive watches in general, when you're looking for one as far as design language goes, you're going to want something that is, of course, tough and legible, you know, water resistance through some type of screw down crown. You're going to want a dive time bezel, and then of course diver's extension is always nice if you do have it on bracelet. Also, one thing to mention about their relationship to Seiko, Orient. So Seiko and Orient are owned by the same parent company, which is Epson. So I think sometimes one of the misconceptions is that you know, Seiko owns Orient. It doesn't. Seiko Watches doesn't own Orient watches. Seiko is owned by Epson. Sometimes you'll hear it called Seiko Epson, but the watch division of Seiko and the watch division of Orient are at equal kind of tiers in the pyramid, right? And you, on top, you have the Epson Corporation, and then underneath, you know, a couple layers down where they make watches, that's where it's at, and they're just one of the brands of watches that they carry. But I think there's actually a lot of nice Seiko DNA that I found in this watch, and then I think, you know, you guys will notice when I start kind of pointing out some of these details. But I just thought that was kind of cool. Normally they do a pretty good job about staying kind of away from each other as far as parts go and any sharing, but I think in this case you'll notice, like, the clasp and whatnot, they look very Seiko-like, but the fit and finish are really at a higher level from, let's say, your average Prospex diver, like the turtle reissue, right? Which, if you haven't seen my videos for the turtle reissue, make sure you check them out. It's a great watch, but I think the build quality on this is definitely going to be above that. And then, if you know, those watches were going for way more expensive when they were first released. So as far as the official US pricing, I don't have that, but I do know how much I paid for this, which I paid about $320 from wherever. Some website that now they're all sold out on. So hopefully they'll come out soon. Actually, they will be coming out soon. They'll be actually released, I think, this week on the 7th of March from Orient USA. So you'll definitely get some stats. You'll be able to check with them as far as pricing goes. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this in hand and take a closer look. All right, so when I mentioned the, you know, the build quality, this is what I was talking about. I mean, look at the breaks and polishing and brushing there. Look how sharp that is. That is just really nice. And then of course you got drilled lugs, another nice feature. Now, although you did see the specs there fly across the screen, this is a 43.4 millimeter diameter with a 13 millimeter height, which actually is not bad considering the size of this watch. With a 52 millimeter lug to lug. Now, I know some of you are hearing, oh no, it sounds too big, no. The lug to lug, why? Why is it so wide? You know, again, watches like the Turtle are honestly were larger and are wider, I believe, 44 millimeters versus 43. And yeah, sure, the lugs are a little bit long, but the shape of them and the way that they actually drape down, I think you'll notice when I have it on wrist, they really don't affect wearability in a bad way. It's a larger watch, yes. It's meant to feel like a big purposeful tool watch. It reminisces most of its styling cues from the Pro Saturation Diver, which was this huge, big, beefy dive watch that was meant for, you know, professional divers. So actually, let's go ahead and pull in the press release here. So as you can see, if you guys want to pause it, you can totally do that and read the details. But basically, you know, Orient goes on to just kind of let everybody know that this piece is a real evolution. It's slotted right in between the Pro Saturation Diver, which is marketed as $800 to $1,000+ watch, and kind of in between the Mako USA, which is of course a much cheaper watch. So really, they just kind of go into that there. They mention a lot, you know, one of the main things is it does have the script of Divers 200 meters stamped onto the dial, because it does meet the JIS standards for a dive watch. So really nice there. And then as you can see here, we have a shot of the different models, different colors. So I of course have the blue model here, but there's going to be an all black, and then you also have the black and gold, which has a really nice heritage vibe to it, and definitely is going to be able to stand out. So yeah, again, if you guys want to take a quick pause and really go over the specs, you're more than welcome to. But for me, I'm going to go back into the review portion. So one of the really nice standout features is you're getting a sapphire crystal here with AR coating. Now, again, when you want to talk about Seiko, you're not going to get that in any of their divers, at least not in any of this, you know, less than ultra expensive and limited divers anyway. Those are all pretty much going to come with hardlex until you get really high up in price range, and even into Grand Seiko is where you're going to be finding sapphire on divers. So that's really a nice touch there. As far as, of course, this case is very reminiscent of the SKX, and like the SKX, which is a 42 that wears more like a 40, I feel like this watch here, although it's a 43.5 roughly, it definitely to me wears more like 41, 42, just because of the ergonomics of the case shape. Now, another nice thing that you can kind of see pulled over, that's another cue back to the SKX, is that Lume pip is shielded. So it actually has a layer of crystal over the Lume pip. I don't know if it's sapphire, but it's really cool that it's there, because it actually keeps it from becoming discolored, which is really nice, because there's a lot of divers, of course, especially that have exposed Lume pips that look great when you first buy them, but after a couple years they get dirty and whatnot and off color, and of course they're going to age and patina at a much more accelerated rate than what's underneath the glass. So when you have a case like that, I think it's really nice that these is pretty, you know, this whole thing is pretty much going to age well together. And then we have this awesome fully indexed bezel with a very reminiscent of the SKX as far as it goes with the bezel action. I'm letting all you bezel junkies get a good listen. So here it's more of the clicking isn't the motion. The motion is smoothly going around, with the clicking keeping track of the motion, right? On much tighter bezels, you're gonna find that the click is the motion. The motion is click, 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 click. Here the motion is a smooth motion, but it's like there's a little clicker going off as you're rotating, and it's just letting you know, hey, there's one click, where's two clicks, here's the unit of measurement. So that's kind of where this is on the spectrum of bezel turns. It's definitely super smooth, but it's not notchy. So the action is the smooth action versus the super notchy action, although it does have clicks, and it has 120 of them. So basically you can do half clicks in between every minute, which is really nice. Now, as far as the street price goes, you can find these anywhere from $300 to $500 when they come to the States, and they're carried by Orient USA. Hopefully they'll be in a nice range. I wasn't able to confirm what their pricing would be, but I think anywhere in there is actually really competitive, considering that the Pro Saturation Diver, which has the same movement, is, you know, an $800 to $1,000 watch, $1,000+ depending on where you get it from. So, and that this basically has a lot of that, what that watch has to offer, and then some, in the fact that it's, you know, it actually has some really cool design cues, and it's a little bit smaller, which makes it more wearable kind of as an everyday watch, versus being something that's super specialized you're only going to take into the deep blue water. So now, as far as the, one thing I want to mention also is the screw down crown has this really great branding there, nicely signed. It has that really bright satin finish with the logo itself brightly polished. So as you can see, they'll let the light play on that a little bit. Really nice there. So moving on to the dial, it is a really nice royal blue sunray dial, very reminiscent of the Blu-ray, you know, which is part of the Mako line. So again, it's really nice to see a watch that has its own DNA and its own character. These hands very much like the Pro Saturation Diver, which were also carried on into the Mako USA, but you know, it does have that DNA there, which is really nice. And then the fully indexed bezel insert, also very reminiscent as well. So, you know, this isn't something that's going to look like, oh, well, that looks like it's trying to be a Rolex Submariner. It's really not. It's from the color palette to the execution to, I mean, just everything about it. It's a diver, but it's not a derivative diver. It's just not that basic, which I think is really cool. And then movement inside, it actually has the exact same movement as I mentioned earlier, which is the 40N5A, which is hacking and hand windable, and it has a power reserve indicator up there, as the Pro Saturation Diver, which is a much more expensive watch. So really cool that you're getting that great movement, and then of course it is, like I mentioned, hacking and hand windable, which is a great step. Although Orient has, you know, recently released some newer movements that are hacking and hand winding, it's really cool that, you know, you're actually getting one with that awesome complication of having a power reserve there. I mean, it's pretty cool because you can see when you need to wind it up. You know, you don't have to just, oh well, I'll give it a day or two, and well, you can just pick it up and go, okay, well, I need to wind this. So I just think it's such a cool feature. I'm really surprised more watches don't have it. I understand that it is kind of an eyesore. What I think would be really awesome is if more watches incorporated into their case backs. So you'd see a power reserve indicator on the back of the watch, you know, through a display case back. I think that'd be pretty cool. If they, you know, maybe if they even cut out a window somewhere else on the watch and you could kind of use that to decipher, I think that would be a really cool touch. So on the case back itself, it is really nicely done. Probably the best Orient case back I've ever seen. Really nice deep stamp there. As you can see, beautiful branding in the crest. Says made in Japan. We got the Epson branding as well. Again, going back to their parent company. Really cool. It's just really, really well done. And then as you can see, this clasp looks very familiar, right? It looks a lot like what you'd find in the Prospex line. And what you would find on a modern turtle reissue. It even has the diver's extension the same as well. The little pop out guy there. Stamped and everything. So really cool. But what you don't find is, you know, big beefy links like this from Seiko. And then these are also pin and collar. Not the greatest way to put together a bracelet, but definitely not the worst. And then the fact that you have drilled lugs means that you can throw this on a NATO or a rubber strap relatively easily. So if you don't like this bracelet, you don't have to wear it with it. I don't think this bracelet is just like some super high-end thing. It's very clearly, you know, a 3-link style, but it's really just single links into the shape of 3 links. I think the rest of the case and everything definitely has a higher finish than the bracelet, but you know what, that's really to be expected from this brand, and you know, even from Seiko, and in this price point especially. So, but really, really nice piece. The lume is really outstanding. We'll definitely get to that here in a minute. But one thing I do want to just touch on is that the finishes on the dial are actually really cool. Oh, and also notice that the chapter ring is lined up immaculately. So it can be done. Orient can do it. But one of the nice things is the brushing there on the handset. It's really good because it doesn't reflect super bright. So it stays very readable, which is nice. The light catches it in a really good way. And then, of course, everything is applied indices, whatnot. You do have the date complication there at the 4 o'clock position. I think it's just a really nice looking dial. And then, of course, you have that classic blue sunburst that Orient watches are really known for. So let's go ahead and actually get this on wrist. Okay, on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, as you can see, I think it wears really well. Doesn't look too huge, especially when you have a little bit more arm in the shot. So, you know, in person, no one's gonna look at this watch and be like, oh my god, this giant watch you have. No. Maybe an up close wrist shot, yeah, it's gonna look pretty big. But really, I think the dial to bezel thickness ratio and whatnot play really well. And I think it wears really well. It definitely feels purposeful. It feels like a tool watch. It feels like you're putting this on so you can just go jump in the water. And you know me, I live in Southern California. There's quite a few water sports out there. This definitely is a watch I could see myself taking out into the lagoon, and you know, just in case I fall over and end up in the water. So just a really cool piece. And I just think they've done really well with it. And as you can see, it wears really well. I mean, yeah, it has longer lug to lug, but I mean, even if you look at it here, there's still plenty of room on my wrist. And I'm sure a lot of you have wrists that are a little bit wider or a little bit smaller. But even if, let's say it was a really, you know, really skinny wrist, it's gonna sit nice, and it's just gonna still wrap really nicely on the wrist. And I really commend them for that. I mean, I wear my watches a little bit lower on wrist. So, you know, range of motion is something that's always really important to me because I wear my watches a little bit looser. You know, because I don't really have like a hugely pronounced wrist bone there. So I just wear them a little bit, you know, where they feel a bit more comfortable, and they have room. My wrist has a little bit of room to expand and whatnot. But you know, I feel like I definitely still have a great range of motion here. That clasp looks great. Everything flows. For the finishing, everything's equal across the board. The way the light hits the brushing, I think looks really great. So let's go ahead and get some lume shots. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, that lume is just about outstanding. Really nicely done. You can actually see the power reserve indicator. The little hand on there actually has a lume on it, so you can see that it's right there at about midway charged. And then you can also, of course, see the second hand trucking along there with that little bit of lume there on the arrow. So really nice, you know, really well executed. Let's go ahead and get some low light transition here. Nice to see how that blue plays in lower lighting. So you can see really dark, actually, almost black, until you really get a couple of streaks of that blue, as you can see right there, right? Just on the top and bottom, you see a little bit of that blue centered, but when you get up here, you get a nice full idea of the blue. Then like this like, you know, black with just little pops of blue, which is gonna be more so what you're gonna see when you're indoors. Of course, my hot studio lights are gonna be more so tailored to imitating direct sunlight outdoors. But as far as this goes, you know, you're not always going to be outside on this hot sunny day, the clear skies, looking at this piece. So I think it's always nice to take a look at it in kind of low light transition. So I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. I guess I have a lot to say, but I guess I covered a lot of that actually in my initial review. But so my closing thoughts, I'd say to sum everything up, you know, on the wrist, it's pretty much like like Orient advertises. It's a mixture between the Pro Saturation Diver and the RA-2 and or in Mako USA in blue anyway. It's a hybrid. It's a little bit more capable, a little bit more hefty, more substantial, a little bit more polarizing as well. Because you know the watches like the Mako 2 and the RA-2 and the Mako USA 2, these watches all are a little bit more on the vanilla side, where this is going to be something that's going to be more on the standout side. I think there's definitely going to be a big demographic of people that are going to love this watch, and there's going to be a lot of people that don't really like it. I think the collectors of dive watches are going to really enjoy this piece. People who like micro brands, I mean, this is right in that sweet spot as far as sizing goes, as far as bang per buck goes. This is really a competitive timepiece in that range for people that are spending, you know, $500-600 on watches that don't have an in-house movement, that don't really have any lineage. Just for something that's tough and durable. Hey, this is tough and durable. It's in-house, it has a power reserve, it has Sapphire. You know, it just has a lot of cool features, and it has a cool story behind it. It's a refinement and an evolution of existing designs that have been around for, you know, 20 years or so. So I just think that's really cool, and it tells something. And then of course, model variants like we covered. There's going to be an all black model, and then, you know, black with gold accents, which is really nice as well. My pick, of course, is the blue. If you look back on some of my other videos, you'll notice that that's pretty much my bread and butter. As far as comparable models go, really you're going to kind of have to go modded to really compare this to something. I mean, if you take an SKX mod, right, you're going to update the movement and whatnot, update the crystal, bracelet. Yeah, it could be pretty competitive. The Mako USA 2, also pretty competitive. It's going to be just as water resistant. It's also going to have hacking and hand winding. Then it's also going to have a sapphire crystal. The difference is its bezel pip isn't going to be shielded, and you know, the bracelet definitely is not going to be as substantial, but it's a nice piece, and it's still something I definitely do recommend. But I think this is now kind of the other end of the spectrum. For those of you that think that watch is just a bit too vanilla, maybe even you know, forgettable. This is not the case for the Orient Triton. It's something that really stands out. It's bold. In this case, it's blue, and you know, I'm really liking it. So I think this is right up there with the Turtle reissue. It even has better specs. So for those of you that, you know, really embrace the Seiko Turtle reissue, the SRP, you know, models, I think this is definitely something you should take a look at as well. Don't be turned away from the specs. Definitely try to get this on wrist first, because I have to say, when I first read the specs, I was a little bit, I had the same knee-jerk reaction, but when I got it on wrist, I was like, wow, this is great. And honestly, when you have a lot of watches, you stop being as picky with trying to make everything an everyday watch. Not every watch is meant to be an everyday watch. Some of them are meant to be special and fun and kind of wild cards, and very specific in theme. And you know, this isn't a Rolex Explorer alternative. This is a big chunky dive watch alternative. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you like it? What do you wish was different? I definitely do plan on featuring this watch again in the future in a couple other videos, but this is kind of the one that will be focused specifically on it, versus kind of comparing it to other things as far as sizes and quality and specs and whatnot. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video and enjoyed it, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.